Hello and welcome to The Pulse. This broadcast is live on DSTV, channel 421, GoTV, channel 125, and on all our social media handles. We're JoyNews on TV. The Pulse now airs from 2 to 5 p.m. every weekday. Coming up, pressure is intensifying on the government to slash fuel taxes as the Africa Center for Energy Policy and GPRTU ramp up demands, with transport operators issuing a 2-day ultimatum and warning of imminent fare hikes.
Then we'll have no option that we also, organize ourselves to, request for an increment of transport fares for our members.
We have details as fuel prices spike today. Anxiety ripples through the streets, leaving many bracing for the squeeze.
It doesn't reach anywhere. That's why today about 200 to see difference of yesterday and today.
A lot of us will be spending much on fuel.
The government orders complete overhaul of computerized school selection and placement system over last year's placement challenges. JoyNews launches national dialogue on Ghana's emergency care crisis, the no-bed syndrome killing many who could have otherwise been saved. And a bit later, we'll bring you the story of a traditional chief priest as the sea slowly swallows the gods and shrines he has protected for over 30 years.
It's not this near like the way it is now. So now we are seeing that the sea is coming. More than years now.
More in JoyNews' later series, When the Sea Comes Home, as communities along Accra's coastline struggle to save their homes, sacred sites, and livelihoods from the coastal erosion. The Pulse is brought to you by Defendril Cough Expectorant. Defendril, breathe easy, feel better. My name is Kenneth. Jesse, details of these and many other stories are coming up in the next 3 hours. Good afternoon. Pressure is building on the government to urgently review fuel taxes as the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP, and the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, GPRTU, warn of deepening hardship and a looming hike in transport fares. The concerns come amid rising global oil prices driven by tensions in the Middle East, pushing local fuel prices higher. New data from the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies show petrol up by over 8% to 15 cedis 19 pesos per litre, with diesel projected to jump by over 9% to about 17 cedis 85 pesos. On the morning show, ACEP Director Ben Boache called for a review of fuel levies to ease the burden on consumers.
There's some adjustment that we've seen recently on PDM, that is the transportation from one bulk point to the other. I don't know what really informed it when, the currency has strengthened, and we've still found ways to adjust that. We've done the same for fuel margin, moving it from 4 pesos to 5 pesos. I don't know how we do that. In fact, that intervention is extremely unnecessary. We've been saying it for so long. You are marking a product to be able to identify it at the pump, and yet that marker is available on the illicit market. They're able to over-concentrate it at the depot. So tracking, how efficient the mark is difficult. All right. So why are you charging the consumer for that?
So we should take away the fuel marking margin?
It has to go. We have to look at the UPPF and aggressively tweak it to be optimal to cater for transportation if we have to do it.
The GPRTU has also stepped up pressure, issuing a 2-day ultimatum for tax cuts or face an increase in transport fares. Deputy PRO Samuel Amwa made the union's position clear on the AM show.
Stands now is that, you see, before this increment, we came up with a relief. And we were asking the government to at least do something about, this fuel hike. Yes, we understand that it's the result of this war, this Iran-America-Israel war. But then we thought that the government, should have done something about it by maybe scrapping some of the taxes that are on the petroleum products, so that we will not have the feel, or will not have that will not experience the increment that we are seeing for now. We came up with this release and gave the government 2 days to do something about it. And if they fail to do it and this increment comes, then we'll have no option that we also, organize ourselves to request for an increment of transport fares for our members.
So those are the concerns of the GPRT. We've also been hearing from commuters who are also voicing concerns over the steady rise in pump prices.
Rising fuel prices are once again placing pressure on the pockets of Ghanaians as commuters and motorists grapple with the latest increments at the pumps. Many fear the situation could actually lead to higher transport fares and also rise in living conditions if the situation or the trend continues. We are here to gauge or get reactions from some commuters and motorists to understand how they are going to cope with the situation.
Yesterday I buy 150 cedis and today I buy 200 cedis. Because when the time we didn't have this problem, when you buy 150, you can use it the whole day and you get what you have. By now, when you buy the 150, where you have been buying before it will reach, it's not reached there again. It's been coming down. So yesterday I buy 150, it doesn't reach anywhere. That's why today I buy 200 to see difference of yesterday and today.
A lot of us will be spending much on fuel. You understand? We'll be spending much on fuel. Assuming if your transportation at your work site is 100 Ghana cedis, and you take the 100 Ghana cedis, you buy fuel once, and that's all. It is now going to affect your main salary out of the transport allowance, which is not going to help us.
It will affect your daily income, because at first, maybe by the end of the day, I will buy around maybe 150 cedis or something. But from today onwards, I have to buy maybe 200 cedis before I can complete my work.
But now, no coach, so. A club in to full goon. Where we call Nessisiamano. Asa. The one I buy our seat man called 99 that need Philippa, but now, no, you Philipium. I made my idea my.
Here in Accra, the impacts of the latest fuel increment is already being felt as drivers and commuters express concern over how they are going to cope with the situation in the coming days. Reporting for JoyNews, Ramat Bashir.
Thank you, Ramat. Meanwhile, Dalek's finance CEO, Joe Jackson, has also been weighing in on the call to remove some fuel levies. We'll get to that sound a bit later, but let's get onto Zoom right now and speak to Collins Adumako. Is the Deputy Ranking Member on Parliament's Energy Committee. Also joining the conversation is GPRT spokesperson Samuel Amwa. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I want to begin with you, Mr. Adumako. The minority has always maintained that the 1 cedi levy on petroleum prices should be removed. Is that a position you still hold?
Thank you. Absolutely, we still hold that position, and I'm happy the president is tilting towards that position. When I heard him say that he has instructed the finance minister and the energy minister to meet and to have a reconsideration of some of the levies and taxes on petroleum products, especially the 1 Ghana cedi.
Right.
We have argued from the beginning that it is not appropriate to overburden the Ghanaian people in order to take care of some of your inefficiencies. We argued that, but at the time, we were told that the 1 Ghana cedi was not going to increase petrol prices because at the time the exchange rate was doing well and the international price of crude oil was hovering around $65 to $70. Today, it has escalated to over $100, and clearly we don't have too much control over that. And so we are still insistent, and as I said, I'm happy the president is tilting towards that government should come in and cushion the Ghanaian consumer by removing some of these taxes.
And how much of an impact will this adjustment be for Ghanaians?
Well, if the petrol price today is 16, 17 cedis, as we are seeing, diesel is above 17. If you take away the 1 cedi, obviously it will come to 15 or 16. So there's going to be some impact on that, I'm also aware that government is also even considering some other levies on the petroleum price bill to see how best they could tilt it to cushion the consumer. I'm sure when you speak to my colleague, the GPRC TU person, he'll tell you that what this means is that their cost of fuel is going to go up. What that means is that they have to find a way of pushing that onto the consumer. Earlier on, when the exchange rate was down and the fuel price came down, we forced them to reduce their prices. Once fuel has gone up, I'm not too sure they could hold on for a very long time. The government does not intervene.
Right. I spoke to your colleague, Felix Kwachiofor, who is the government spokesperson yesterday. He says that all options are currently on the table, although he failed to explicitly say that they are going to remove the 1 Ghana cedi. But if all options are on the table, some are arguing that the 1 Ghana cedi could be reduced to, let's say, half, 50 pesos, or you are calling for a total scrapping of the cedi on the prices altogether.
You know, the point is that even his admission that all other options are on the line is a direct deviation of their earlier stance. When we had this press conference, and I led the press conference, the response we got from government, and I listened to the Minister of Energy himself, who said that the purpose for the 1 Ghana cedi has not been totally exhausted. The whole idea of taking out the 1 Ghana cedi as of now should not be on the table. The fact that they are even considering is a good point for us. We just want them to move from consideration to action and take the bold step to relieve Ghanaians of some burden. Less burden share at this particular point in time. It's becoming a little bit difficult, my brother. What this means is that, and I just heard you speak to ordinary Ghanaians who were going to buy fuel. One person was buying 150, now he's buying 200. What that means is that his disposable income, what is left, has been reduced by 50 cedis. If you're a transport owner and most of the trucks use diesel, diesel has moved over 17 cedis. What that means is that the cost is going to, don't forget that this can even translate into the cost of food products, because food products are transported.
Right.
And once the cost of fuel has gone up, cost of transportation is likely to go up, which can cause an increment in food prices. And we all know what that means for our inflation figures. So I'm happy government says all options are on the table. We are just pleading with them for them to quickly take a bold decision as quickly as possible. As we speak now, the rhetoric from Trump and all the players within that space is not appealing. It's clear that this war will continue for a longer time. And other countries are taking bold steps. Namibia has slashed levies on petroleum products by 50%. Indeed, when you go to India and other Asian countries, reduce working days to 5 days. Reduce their movement. Even those who are producing are not prepared to eat, let alone for it to eat. So I think you must come to terms that this is a reality now, and they should listen to what Ghanaians generally are talking about and take off some of the levies and taxes.
Collins, I want you to hold on for me. Let me bring in the GPRTU at this point. Samuel is joining me on Zoom. Samuel, welcome to the program. We've been listening to the Deputy Ranking Member on Energy and also a former Deputy Energy Minister. What do you make of his assessment?
All right, so, sorry. Thank you very much for having me on your show. Let me say good afternoon to you and your viewers. Yes, see what they are, the point that they are raising, I think is well understood. All that the GPRT is looking forward for is to see that the fuel price will not get to where it is now. When the middle price window opens, that was about 2 weeks ago, our drivers started mounting pressure on us that we should try as hard as we can to just, come up with some upward adjustment of transport fares. We explained to them that what is happening now because of, Iran, America, and Israel war, and that they should hold on based on the meeting that we had with the transport ministries, that they gave us the assurance that the government is going to try and work things out to make sure that going forward we will not see, upward adjustment of petroleum product as we are seeing it now. So yes, we came out with a relief that we are giving the government 2 days for them to do something about it, because we know, as our the earlier speakers said that we have about 13 or so taxes and levies on the petroleum product.
Okay. And
we all know that we are not in a normal times. All these things, the time will come. I strongly believe that the war will stop and fuel prices will come back to normal. So if the government can do something by sacrificing some of the taxes, margins, and levies on the petroleum product to pushing us a little bit, I think it will be at the right direction. Because if it happens that we are buying it as it is now, even as I'm speaking to you, pressure is being mounted seriously on the leadership of GPRTU. The drivers are calling for increment. Cowners are calling for increment because of how much they are buying the fuel for now. So government should seriously intervene. I strongly agree with the early speakers that if the government comes in to scrap some of the taxes for now, I think it will be very good for us.
And since you issued that ultimatum, the 2-day ultimatum for government to remove those taxes or you increase fares, have you heard from government?
No, not yet. We've not heard from the government yet. We are still waiting. Tomorrow, we are going to meet by the close of tomorrow. I think if nothing is being done because of the pressure that has been mounted on the leadership, if nothing is being done, then it means that we need to put things together. We have a committee that what they do is to check on the components that we use to run the business. That is the spare parts, the lubricant, the taxes, and the petroleum product. They will bring their report. We calculate and see, the percentage that we think if we come up with, upward adjustment. We'll submit our report to the Transport Ministry for further negotiations, then we'll come up. So that is what is there now.
The GPRTU is often accused that when petroleum products come down, the prices of fuel come down, you do not reduce your fares. But the moment it goes up, you are in a haste to increase your prices. We've been hearing from everyday customers who are expressing worry that you are always in a haste to increase your fares the moment prices of fuel go up.
Okay, so for the benefit of your viewers and listeners, let me explain this. You see, this is not a fact that anytime fuel prices goes up, we also come up with increment of transport fares. It's been happening that sometimes fuel prices will go up the first time, the second time, the third time. We work with calculation. We have a percentage threshold that anytime the fuel price will hit that percentage threshold, then we also sit and do our calculations. Let me take you back a little bit. During about 2 years ago, last 2 years April, we reduced our transport fares by 15%. By then, the fuel price was reduced by 18%. And we met, even by then, we didn't even look at the cost of spare parts and the other components. We only check on only the petroleum product. And even if we were supposed to go strictly by only the petroleum product reduction, then we should have even reduced our fares by only 6%, not even the 15%.
Right.
So let me also take you back to
Sam, kindly hold on for me. Kindly hold on for me. I'll come back to you. But let me also bring in Derek Zache. He's a senior research and policy analyst at IES. But let's wrap up with the former Deputy Energy Minister, Collins Adomako, who I understand wants to rush back to a meeting. Thank you very much for still holding on the line for us. I want to pick your final thoughts before I let you go.
I'm happy government is considering, which is a direct response to our request 2 weeks ago when we held our press conference. I'm just hoping that that decision will be taken as quickly as possible. We just listened to the GPRTU gentleman who says that there's a lot of pressure from their drivers for them to take a decision. And so if government delays, what it means is that they will have no option but to increase the fares. And we all know what that means for the Ghanaian economy. So I'll just plead with government to as quickly as possible meet, take a decision so we move on.
You've been in this ministry before. You were Deputy Energy Minister during Akufo-Addo's administration. What's the worst case scenario if government doesn't remove the 1 cedi levy?
Well, GPR2, they are private individuals. They are other private players, and their motive is to make profits. Apart from they providing a social good, they have to make profits. So if government fails to reduce the taxes, the only thing they can do now is to pass on that cost to the final consumer. That would be the worst that could happen. Of course, industry is going to suffer. Petrol prices, if petrol prices go up, industry, the cost of doing business will go up. Don't forget that electricity has gone up by close to 28.2% already. Water has already gone up by 19.3%. And so if you combine all this together, we should understand that it's going to have a rippling effect on the economy, and the macroeconomic gain that we are touting, inflation is going to be affected. So I'm sure government is weighing in on all these scenarios, and I'm sure they are going to quickly take a decision.
Collins Adomako, thank you very much. He's the Deputy Ranking Member on the Energy Committee and also a former Deputy Energy Minister. Let's go back to the telephone lines right now and bring in Derek Zache. He's a Senior Research and Policy Analyst at IES. Derek, welcome to the program. What should government do in this situation? Remove the taxes or not?
Thanks for the opportunity. Good afternoon once again. So basically where we find ourselves is not a good situation for the country, but be as it may, we've seen some increment at the various pumps. We know how that will also translate into the cost of businesses or cost of doing businesses. And so it is just the right time for the government to be able to engage all those in the value chain, or let me say the stakeholders, to be able to arrive at that minimum consensus. The government will also be looking at what can best be done at their end, and then what will be best that will be able to favor the consumer. It will just not be something like just wake up tomorrow and say I'm taking off this or I'm doing that. If you look at the cost build-up, you see that some of the things are more static. What can be done? Basically, anybody who can speak about it is talking about the taxes and levies. And if you look at the taxes and levies, not all of them can be touched. Some of them, even if you touch it or remove it, it becomes quite insignificant to the price build-up. The one that is very significant is the 1 cedi levy, or what we call the Dumso levy. And you should also know that that is also equally serving another purpose as the fuel cost for power generation. And so if you're asking yourself that should be abolished, then you should also know that what we use to fuel, or let me say power the thermal plants, is the liquid fuel. And that cost of liquid fuel had already even gone up. And so if it was even to be at 1 cedi, then it means that the cost to government in terms of the fuel cost for power generation has even gone up already. And so if you are talking about the abolishment of the 1 Ghana cedi, then the government will have to be assured or be able to assure Ghanaians that I have enough reserves, I'm able to look for money from any other angles to be able to take care of it. So if I take up the 1 Ghana cedi, I still have something. But it is a good discussion. It should not just be like total pressure on government, because we should be concerned about the continuous supply of power for both households and businesses. Today, 1st April, we've seen that the cost of electricity and a lot of water have gone down. There has been some reduction of it. That is good news for consumers. And so what we suggest from the IES is that if you are talking about margins and levies, then the immediate one that we can be looking at is a price stabilization and recovery levy. And that is what we are looking at within the shortest term. For the 1 Ghana cedi levy, even though there are calls for it, we can still monitor and have the discussion on the back of the second pricing window. The second pricing window is just 2 weeks away from now. And so if all discussions can be held, and then there can be an agreement that if things persist or continue as it is, then for the second pricing window, then there will be a need for us to be able to remove or suspend the collection of the 1 Ghana cedi levy. Then we can all come to that consensus and agree on it. But within this first pricing window, if there's pressure on government to be able to suspend the 1 Ghana cedi, then we should know that the government will be forced to look for more money to be able to take care of the full cost for power generation. And I'm not sure we'd all want to be or maybe witness any part of power outages anymore. And so let us be more deliberate. Let us be more concerned about the sustainability of the sector without compromising the quality that we can get.
Right, but there are concerns also that the price stabilization levy is really insignificant. So even if government suspends it now, what difference will it really make?
Exactly so. That is why I said that when you look at the price build up, it was not something that you just wake up one day and say you want to take off this. The one that is quite significant to stands today is the Dumsor levy, which is 1 Ghana cedi, because the price stabilization recovery levy is about 16 pesos, quite insignificant. If you look at the percentage of the total price that we are paying at the pumps, it's very quite insignificant. But that more or less begins or gives the consumer a first step that the government is more responsive and wants to do something. If we take off the 1 Ghana cedi, which is very significant, which is 1 Ghana cedi, then you know that you must find something to be able to solve it. It will be good news for consumers. But how sustainable is that? Because that was brought in to solve a problem. But if we rush for it, then we should be prepared to take the risky action to be able to solve it. But having a roundtable discussion, letting the consumer understand where we find ourselves and then how it will support businesses, then that would be a good thing. But it is, even if you take off the 1 Ghana cedi levy today, it is not a sustainable way that prices will not rise up tomorrow. Right. Definitely, if price goes up on the international market for the second pricing window, then it means that price will still go up. And so that is not sustainable. That is not a sustainable way that we are looking at. But within the shortest term, if the government wants to do something and bring an immediate respite to consumers and businesses, then you can look at the possible removal of that 1 Ghana cedi. Maybe for the second pricing window, then all businesses can be able to adjust. Even the transport owners can agree that if this one, the second pricing window, if things go as it is, then that one, the government, you don't even have any excuse to give us anymore. We have no reason or no doubt to just come to that consensus and agree to increase transport fares. Then everybody prepares and plans for that. But when you just wake up and then you say that there should be a suspension, it's quite worrying, because in the next pricing window, trust you me, you don't know what will be the geopolitical dynamics that will happen. Looking at how the major players or those who are major affected by this Iran and Israel fight are very worried about it. And so if the second pricing window, there's a de-escalation of the war and prices begins to fall, then are we going to ask consumers to bear with us for maybe another 1 month before there is possible a reduction of transport fares? I'm not sure that would be the right way to go. So let us look at it. If you look at how things are going, you can see there is a possible way to be able to arrive at a consensus where there will be a de-escalation of the war. And then that negative impact that we are feeling in terms of prices, I'm sure would have reached a minimum equilibrium. By then, would have had a full impact and then a full overview of what we should expect for the second pricing window.
Derek, don't go yet. Sammy Alamwa with the GPRT is still on Zoom with me. Sammy, we will talk about the concerns and the reasons that are contributing to you threatening to increase fares. But you've been listening to the analyst, Derek Zache of IAS, who says that in the interim, what he will suggest is for the removal of the price stabilization levy, which is about 15 pesos. Does that suffice?
Okay, so if government want to, take up the price stabilization, that is the 15 pesos, yes, I can say that it's in the right direction. But the question is, will the 15 pesos alone, have an effect on the cost of the petroleum product for us not to, also come up with an increment? Is it what we are looking at? It's not even only the petroleum product.
Right.
We also, look at the spare parts. We also look at, the lubricant. We also look at taxes. Quite recently, just last month, insurance policies were increased. Sprinter buses, 23 passengers, that was paying about 933 is now paying about 1,194. Likewise, the 15-seater buses that were paying about 837 is now paying about 995 thereabout, and all the other vehicles. So the operational cost, all of them has gone up. So if it happens that fuel price has also gotten to where it is now, and we still maintain the fares that we are taking now, then it means that we are going to run at a loss. Quite recently, the middle price window, our drivers were, asking the leadership of the union to go in for an increment of transport fares. Yes, we knew very well that, hopefully it's two things. Either the final price window, that is the last one, that has just come. Either it will go up again, or it will be stabilized, or it will come down based on, what will happen in the Middle East. But here we are, that, it is up now. what are we going to tell them? Are they going to, still sustain what is happening now? It means that every day when they work, they will run at a loss. So if the government want to do something about it, it's not going to be only the price stabilization. And if it happens that they take only 15%, it will not have any effect on the government has to do before things can be stabilized.
Right, and I want you to briefly respond to concerns by consumers that you're always quick to increase fares the moment the petroleum prices go up.
Just recent increase was a clear indication that shows that there is no way, whenever there is an increment of petroleum, we will come up with increment of transfer. If you typically call last year, there wasn't any increment of transfer. Last year, for 2 years now, there has been an increment of transfer. Sometimes prices of wealth can go up, but we have a percentage threshold that we not look at. When the percentage threshold, that means that there is possibility for us to sit down and come with an adjustment.
Right.
And the when it comes down. That's the main reason why about 2 years ago, when the price came down about 18%, we also reduced our by 10%. So
right.
What we come is not it's not at any time poor price goes up, increase price. No, that is not what thing.
Samuel Amwa is with the Ghana Private Road Transport Union. Earlier, we heard from Derek Zache, who is a senior researcher with IES. And a bit earlier, we heard from Collins Adomako. He's the deputy ranking member on the Energy Committee and also a deputy energy minister. The Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa, says the tendering process to secure a new investor for the Diamond mine is progressing steadily. According to him, the government remains committed to protecting the jobs of employees at the mine following his visit to the site as part of ongoing transition processes, insisting the process will remain fair.
Is to familiarize ourselves with the mine as this period, as I've described, is coming to an end. But more importantly, to also make sure we engage you and the workers here to give them the assurance. And this assurance is coming from His Excellency President Mahama. His whole focus is the people who work here, who have families, who must be protected. And so I'm here with the members of Parliament who ultimately will also work on this same mine in terms of the future lease to make sure that there's an orderly transition that ensures that the operations is not interrupted, that guarantees the safety of the mine, that also guarantees the contract or the employment of those who are already been here. And all of that are part of the reason we have come. And so we come with good news. We believe that this mine's future is ahead of us. I did not go into the details of what is important and why we made this decision. But we are also aware that there's a lot of work to be done. I can tell you that the process of the tender is going very well. I can also tell you that our commitment for whoever is going to operate this mine to protect the employees of that mine is the #1 priority. To make sure that they are better off and not less is the priority of government. To make sure that subcontractors and contractors who are already committed working here will not have any interruptions is the government priority. And so I think that is the reason why you see me and the members of the Select Committee of Mines and Natural Resources who are also very, very, very interested in this very important transition.
And the minority is also very keen and interested in ensuring that the right investor takes over the mine so Ghana can continue to benefit from it. But let's take you live to the grounds right now and speak to my colleague Fatao Bayaga, who has been on tour with the minister. Fatao, bring us up to speed. What can you tell us? Hello, Fatao, can you hear me? Do we have Fatao Bayaga on the line? Fatao, you've been with the minister all day. What can you tell us?
Ken, this forms part of the minister's process to the mine processes to get a new investor to take over from gold fields to mine this particular mine, which is described as one of the significant gold mine sites in this country. In fact, the minister came together with members of the Lands and Natural Resources Committee of Parliament, and basically some of the things that he spoke about were the fact that he said jobs would be protected as part of this particular process. Ken, this particular site or mine was being spearheaded by the Aboso Goldfields Limited, which is a subsidiary of Goldfields Ghana Limited. They operated here for about 30 years. Last year, the lease expired, but their contract was extended to this year. Now, as we speak, on the 18th of April, the lease would be expired, and government needs to get a new investor to take over from this particular company. And the government says that they do not want the process or the period to reach, and there's no any investor to take over to operate in this particular mine. So they are working hard. In fact, according to the land minister, the bidding process is going very, very well at the moment to ensure that there is a new investor to take over from this mine. The chairman of the committee, Collins Daughter, said that if you look at this particular mine, it's very crucial for this nation. And for them as a committee, they are going to ensure that all the gaps, or they ensure that all gaps that would probably undermine the performance of the next investor would all be closed to ensure that the right things are done for the mine to help the community and the nation as a whole. He says that a new lease would be presented for the committee. They would make their own recommendations, and then it will eventually be ratified in Parliament. And for the ranking member on the committee, Kwaku Ampachum Sapon, Ken, basically he says that the minority, would support the outcome of this particular process, but for them they are keen on ensuring that the government gets a very good person or company that would take over to operate in this particular mine. Right.
Fatao Bayaga is our man on the ground with the Lands and Natural Resources Minister. Thank you very much. And joining me on Zoom right now is Stephen Manteao. He's a co-chair of the Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. Dr. Manteao, grateful for your time this afternoon. What steps must the government take to make this process of securing a new investor for the diamond mines open and fair? Kindly unmute your microphone so we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. The Ghana EITI governing body has been looking into these matters since last year. And in its latest report, published on 31st December 2025, we made some proposals. For us, transparency in the process of reallocation of this concession is key. And so among the proposals we made, of course, mindful of the political risk that we are faced with. In this country, we turn everything into a political football game. So you allocate a concession to somebody perceived to be aligned to one political party. The moment the government changes hands, we cancel the contract and then reallocate it to our political favorites. We've seen this play out in the Yunahini bauxite. You recall when government changed hands, we took a duly awarded contract, of course, yet to be ratified. from Exton Cubic and gave it to Rockshore. So these kinds of political games were things that we were mindful of in making proposals to government. Our first proposal to government was if government was mindful of getting an investor who had the required resources to make the needed investments, then government should consider having a joint venture arrangement where there is a very strong Ghanaian participation, possibly 50-50 shareholding structure. But if government wants a Ghanaian company to take over, then our next preferred option would be to bring Ghanaian mining companies that are perceived to be aligned to the NDC and those that are perceived to be aligned with the NPP together to form a consortium. In fact, there are about 3 or 4 companies that are quite strong in the sector. We have Engineers and Planners, we have Rockshore, we have Rabotech, we have Ramov. So possibly we could bring them together, these 4 companies, to form a consortium with an agreed shareholding structure and ask them to mine for the state. And then we agree with the benefit sharing arrangement. But we're also aware that the internationally accepted process for allocating contracts is the open competitive bidding. And so the committee threw its weight behind the open competitive bidding, that whatever process we choose must be very open and must be competitive. And so we are happy and we commend the minister for committing to an open competitive process in the selection of whoever will mine that mine into the future.
So which ownership would you rather say will be of benefit to Ghana? A wholly owned Ghanaian takeover, or a partnership, as you mentioned earlier, or a foreign takeover wouldn't also be bad?
I think Ghanaian mining companies, local mining companies have come of age. If you take a company like Engineers and Planners, they have been mining gold for Goldfields since 2017 or thereabout. They also mine gold for Goldfields in Tapa. The same Engineer Planners had the opportunity of mining steel, what do you call it, iron, for the world's biggest iron and steel company, ArcelorMittal, in Liberia. So for a Ghanaian company that has gone international, I think we can safely say we've come of age. I know there are other companies like Rabotech. Rabotech mines gold on contract basis for Asanko and the others. So I would prefer that it goes to a wholly owned Ghanaian company. The essence is that whatever value is created is retained within the Ghanaian economy if you have your own people mining the resources for you. If you bring in an international investor, whatever value he creates goes back to his country and deprives Ghana of our fair share of the benefits from mineral extraction, leaving us with only the negative consequences of environmental degradation.
And is it likely to affect investor confidence if a Ghanaian company takes over Diamond Mine?
Well, for a Ghanaian company of high repute, I do not think it will create any challenge for our investment attractiveness, because already these multinational corporations are using Ghanaian companies to mine, and they haven't made any complaint about their efficiency. So I don't think that there will be any issue with that.
The minister.
But going forward as a country, I think we need to have a strategy for optimizing our value in our mineral sector. Currently, we don't seem to be operating in accordance with any strategy. I recall about 5 or 6 years ago, my committee made representation to the then government to consider converting our carried interest, our free carried interest in mining concessions in Ghana into paid equity. That will give us the assurance of regular revenue stream flow into the budget. Currently, we have a free carried interest that is only tied to the declaration of dividends. And companies can sometimes operate for up to 10, 15 years without declaring dividends. And so in that period, we lose out on terms of revenue streams. But if we were to convert this into paid equity, then there is a way in which any time the company produces, will be entitled to a share of the output.
Right. The minister also mentioned job security. Should we take his word that the people currently there will not likely lose their jobs regardless of whoever takes over?
Yes, we need some guarantees from whoever takes over. But even before that, the handing over will happen, I think, on the 18th of April. It is important that we are quick about the selection process to have a company on site before the 18th so that we'll have a smooth transition. Any delay can disrupt the production processes, and that will come at some cost to the state, including job losses.
Dr. Steve Mantea, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. We've also been hearing from the minority who say they are very keen and interested in ensuring that the right investor takes over the mine so Ghana can continue to benefit from it. We're ready to support whatever the final decision will be. That is according to Kweku Amprachum Sapon, who is the ranking member on the Lands and Natural Resources Committee.
Arranging and facilitating this visit. I'm sure it's a very timely visit, and it's going to afford us the opportunity to actually get to know the diamond mines and what is happening here, and to get some more information to help me in my ranking work. I know I have been in the news in the last couple of weeks for either good or bad reasons. But I know whatever that has been going on has been done in the good interest of the people of Daman, good interest of the staff and the employees of this company, and also for the future of the company, and overall for Mother Ghana. And let me restate that the minority group or the opposition is very keen and interested in making sure that we get the right company, the right entrepreneur, the right investor to take over the mine, and then make sure that Ghana continues to benefit from it. We are sure to support whatever the final outcome is. We are going to say,
The pause returns after this break. Let's take you live to the Accra International Airport, where Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa has touched down in Ghana for a state visit. Our presidential affairs correspondent Maxwell Agbagba is there with the latest. Maxwell, what can you tell us?
Yes, Ken. So, as you can see on the screens, this ceremony to welcome Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa it's underway here at the Jubilee Lounge of the Accra International Airport. What is happening now is the inspection of the Guard of Honor by the President of Zimbabwe. But earlier, before that happened, we had the national anthems of both countries, Ghana and then Zimbabwe. If you come here to the Accra International Airport, various dignitaries from the Ghanaian side, also from the Zimbabwean side, are gathered here, all waiting to exchange pleasantries with the president of Zimbabwe and the president of Ghana, who's here to receive the Zimbabwean president. I can see here the Foreign Affairs Minister, Samuel Okuneto Ablakwa, but also I can see the Chief of Staff, Julius Debra, is also present here. Also here is the Health Minister, Kwabena Akando. I can also see the Interior Minister, Muntaka Obarak. Also here, Rashid Pelpo, Labour Minister. I see Prosper Ban. I also see the Chief of Staff in charge of administration. Nana Oye Bampo Ado is also here. I see Tourism Minister, Jifa Gomashi, also present here. I think some security chiefs also present, security service chiefs also here. The head of the fire service is present here. The head of the Ghana Immigration Service is also present here. Just a while ago, we had members of the Ghana Supporters Union also arriving here on the ground to welcome the president of Zimbabwe to Ghana for this 3-day state visit. Let me state that present here also are members of the diplomatic corps. I can see the head of the diplomatic corps, who also doubles as the ambassador of Morocco to Ghana, also present here. So quite a lot, is happening here at the Accra International Conference Center. Now, after this ceremony, later in the evening, there's going to be a state banquet in honor of the visiting president. President Mama will host a state banquet in honor of President Mnangagwa to celebrate the strong ties between Ghana and Zimbabwe. What you can hear now is the sound coming from the Ghana Supporters Union. President Mahama now approached the exchange pleasantries with the dignitaries from the Ghanaian side and the Zimbabwean side.
Right. So that is President Emmerson Mnangagwa of Zambia, side by side with President John Mahama of Ghana, the president of Zimbabwe, rather, side by side with the president of Ghana, John Mahama, there in his fugu, exchanging pleasantries with the dignitaries there. I can see the Foreign Affairs Minister, as Maxwell Akpogba mentioned. The Chief of Staff is there as well. Other senior ranking military officers and other ministers of state are there as well. Emmerson Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe there, being welcomed to Ghana by a number of dignitaries and being ushered onto the land by the president himself, John Mahama. He's on a 3-day state visit to the country. Bulletins, but in the meantime, government has ordered a sweeping overhaul of Ghana's computerized school selection and placement system after widespread concerns over last year's placements. Education Minister Haruna Idrisu says the reforms will restore fairness, transparency and predictability. A technical committee has been tasked to supervise the process, while the placement algorithm is being upgraded to ensure a more credible outcome in the next cycle.
And gentlemen of the press, once I have you, one of the major problems in Ghana and the Ministry of Education and GES is a subject of Category A, Category B, and Category C schools. I'm aware that the BEC exams will soon be conducted, and as is conducted, students will be required to go through the placement system. Last year, there were very unpleasant moments that affected parents, teachers, and all of us. I want to hereby report that government is completely overhauling the CSSPS system in order to ensure that meritocracy, transparency, and equity, and more importantly, predictability, guide the placement process. But much of it, we should all admit, are problems created by all of us. In many instances, we have seen registration of unqualified BEC students. You can imagine somebody in primary 6, Form 1 or Form 2 being encouraged by their parent to write BECA. That is not acceptable under our GES practices, and any student or parent caught will be dealt with decisively. The students must go through the full course of primary school to junior high school 3 before writing BECA. We will strictly enforce the WAEC and GES standards.
Well, the minister has also directed the Ghana Education Service to reopen school selection. Students will have a mandatory 1-week window after the release of BEC results to review and confirm their choices based on performance. He warned parents against registering unqualified candidates for the exams, stressing that such practices will not be tolerated.
One of the significant improvements to the process, and Director General GES, you are accordingly directed, is that students are to begin the process of making a determination of school choice, but that process is not to be completed until the results are finally announced and determined. So in the past, you had a situation where students determine and choose schools without knowing their aggregate level, and that affected the placement system. This time, we will give a mandatory period of 1 week after the results have been declared for students to confirm on the basis of their performance in the BECA what their first choices are. Government also recognizes that alumni play a significant role today in the survival and transformation of many of our schools across the country. Accordingly, a dedicated percentage will be given to alumni for purpose of placement in the revised CSP program. I pray that this will not be abused, just like the protocol is often abused. I'm aware that last year we got protocol requests as much as 60,000. Anybody in my shoes will struggle to honor those requests. Let me also say that there will be a supervising committee of a technical working committee that will supervise the work of the CSPS system, and then the restoration of a displacement algorithm to ensure fairness and placement of candidates who with their preferred school choices.
Well, let's bring in Hashmin Mohammed. He speaks for the Education Ministry. Hashmin, welcome to the program. What do these new reforms announced by the sector minister seek to achieve? Hello, Hashmin. Unfortunately, we do not have Hashmin at this moment, but let's now bring in the Executive Director of the Institute for Education Studies, Dr. Peter Pate-Anti. Dr. Anti, grateful for your time this afternoon. What do you make of this new directive by the sector minister?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to your viewers. Proactiveness, that is what I see, proactiveness. We have had cause to complain that the problems that the CSSPS have gone through needs a certain level of leadership and proactiveness as we prepare for what's BEC 2026. We do not want the repetition of what happened last year. So the recommendations that came out from our analysis included all the things that the minister is talking about. But one key thing is that he is being proactive. He's not waiting for the thing to happen before he reacts. So now he's calling for, or he's setting up a technical committee to look at a complete overhaul of the CSPSS, which we have said already, and we are happy that the minister is adopting that. Again, he's also adopting the idea of not closing the school selection process before the students see their result. I think that is one of the difficult things I personally never understood, because how do I select a school when I don't know my performance? Now the minister is saying that after you've seen your performance, you have a 1-week mandatory period where you can edit your school choices based on your performance. It used not to be so. Initially, what the process was like, you confirm. So you don't have any permission to edit. You are just supposed to confirm. Now the minister says the selection process starts from your first year, your final year, and then...
Oh, Dr. Ante, I'm losing you.
You have seen your results. 1-week period is given. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, much better.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, I think this is a step in the right direction. We are hoping that the committee that the minister is putting together would do a good job, and we're going to have at least an incident-free BEC, CSSPS process this year. Of course, this does not mean that we are not going to have certain incidents or certain challenges coming up. But what this means is that the minister is taking a step earlier to ensure that there will be a minimization of the challenges that parents and students face during the period of school selection and placement.
That means you've admitted that it's not going to eliminate the problem altogether. But if we want to eliminate the problems confronting the education sector altogether, what else should the minister do apart from this?
Well, it's going to be difficult to eliminate the problems that the CSSPS faces. It's going to be very difficult. What you can do is to try to minimize the effect, that the parents and the students would have to face. And one of the things is going through the system to ensure that the system is robust and foolproof to be able to address the challenges that happened in the previous year. Another thing is to also address the fundamental issue of school selection, because that issue boils up to the desire for the student to get a particular school choice that he is psychologically and emotionally attached to because he has selected that school. So if he sees his performance and he gets 15 and he thinks that his first choice will not get him the science that he wants, he now has the liberty to pick a school that would give him the signing up, but the magnitude would be a little less as compared to last year. But I can never say that we are going to eliminate this. We can't.
Right.
It's a human system that we are running. We can't eliminate it totally, yes.
So what sort of relief does this bring to students and even parents?
Yeah, so for the students, I think the first thing is that it gives the students the idea of how or what he or she wants. And parents, this is an opportunity for you to get involved fully, because we have been told that sometimes the school selection is left with the student and the teacher. Now, when you get the results as a parent, you now have to get in fully and find out which schools did your school, did your ward select, and how does this performance fit within that particular school context. So it brings in the parent. It brings the parent to the center of the school selection process, and it also gives the student a certain realization, because once he selects the school and he sits for the exam and he sees his results, there were no opportunity for him. Now there's an opportunity. So once you select the school and you see your results, you have the opportunity to step back a little, reanalyze your results and look at your ambitions and your future direction, and then look at the schools that you selected and then make a final decision. So I think this is going to be a big relief to parents and the students especially.
Dr. Ante, don't go yet. Let me bring in Hashmin Mohammed. He speaks for the Education Ministry. Hashmin, welcome to the program. Your sector minister has announced a raft of measures. Tell us about it. Explain to us.
Very much. Well, these are ongoing measures that the ministry is putting in place to guarantee the meritorious application of the CSPS system. As you yourself is rightly aware, in time past, the application of the CSPS system has been met with a lot of challenges, and the ministry thought it wise to bring some kind of reforms that we can be able to put in place to deal with some of the challenges. So one important issue about this new system is that it is going to provide the children the opportunity to know their results before they pick up schools. Because sometimes some students do pick schools and then the results come and their results will not be able to place them into the crisis. And sometimes some students pick some schools and then when their results is published, they realize that maybe they could have chosen a much better school, the school that they have chosen. So all these are measures that the ministry is putting in place to guarantee the meritorious application of the system. And this yet, the committee is also recommending that we should decentralize the resolution centers across the country, even from the district level to the regional levels, so that we will not have a situation where a parent or a student will move, let's say, from the Upper West region to Accra to come to lodge a complaint.
Hashmin Dongoya, let me bring back Dr. Anti. Dr. Anti, there are concerns that this is coming a little bit too late. Do you agree?
Partially, yes. I think that we had a challenge around last year, September. Some of these proposals have been made long before that, and there were a lot of discussions that went on. I was thinking that right after that challenge in last year, the committee should have been put up to start working to ensure that we have a robust system. But better late than never. I think that the committee can work around the clock and ensure that we have a very improved process this year. That is what we are looking for, and that's why I talked about the proactiveness of the Minister of Education, because his work is to solve problems. So if we had a problem last year and we leave it to now fester again this year, it means that then there is no reason why he is supposed to be there. So although the committee comes in a little late, I think that if they are able to work around the clock and do all the necessary stuff that they're supposed to do, we should have a relatively smooth system this year. But this could have been done earlier, I agree with you.
Hashmin, when are we expecting its full implementation?
Since I've been raised about the timing of the committee, let me put it on record that this committee was put in place immediately after the CSS placement system. And you know, the committee went around the country, they spoke to alumni, they spoke to the conference of heads of assisted secondary school, they spoke to parents, and then they spoke to NGOs in the education sector. So they have gathered data throughout the country, and then they have finally submitted their report. It isn't that it was just recently put in place. The committee was put in place as far back last year, and you know, in order for them to do a thorough job, they need to take their time and then factor in the inputs of all concerned stakeholders in the value chain of the education who will be affected by the CSS placement system. So it isn't that the committee was just recently put in place. And these are the committee, majority of them are made up of members of CHAS. Right. These are members of CHAS and people who have experienced management of our senior high school system.
Hashmin Mohammed, thank you very much. He speaks for the Education Ministry, and earlier we heard Dr. Peter Anti, who is an educationist as well. From education, let's talk health, because Ghana's emergency care system is under growing strain with overcrowded hospitals, limited bed capacity, and mounting pressure on frontline health workers, raising serious concerns about patient safety and dignity. As authorities enforce the directive not to turn patients away, the underlying cracks in the system are becoming more visible. And tonight, JoyNews brings together key stakeholders for thought leadership discussion aimed at unpacking the crisis and driving practical solutions to improve emergency care delivery in the country. And that particular dialogue is happening tomorrow. And head of our health desk, Fred Smith, is joining me on Zoom for more. Fred, what are we to expect tomorrow? And really, what prompted this dialogue?
Well, we realize that getting an emergency care in Ghana is not guaranteed. When you are sick, when you fall sick and you have to get some help from the state, in spite of all the investment you've made, you will not get it. Most likely you will not get it, and that's why we decided that we will put together this discussion to ensure that we are able to address this problem. We are bringing together experts, we're bringing together government representatives, people who have suffered at the hospital, the referral hospitals, and the rest, so that we are able to deal with this matter holistically.
Fred, it appears you're far away from the microphone, so you are quite inaudible. If you could kindly speak up for me. But what necessitated this dialogue at this particular hour?
Yeah, what I'm saying, if you can hear me again, is that we, as a country, have suffered
Hello, Fred, can you hear me?
Situation where people allow that to continue. And so we are bringing together all the experts to help address this matter. My personal experience, I felt sick. I was okay from home. I felt sick. The moment I left home, about 5 to 6 minutes into my journey to the office, I felt sick. I couldn't drive anymore. Serious pain in my abdomen. I had to just drop. I stopped the vehicle, dropped onto the road. There were strangers came to my aid and helped me to the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. When I got there, the place was choked. There were no doctor. The doctors were there, right? But they were under serious stress and they were helping others. And so there was no space for me. I thought I was going to die. I didn't, thank God, I didn't die. But it has continued. It has persisted for so long, and we think that we need to find a solution to it. And that's how come we brought together government representatives, other stakeholders, try and deal with the matter.
Fred Smith, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Now, recently, the European Union signed a defense agreement with Ghana, a first on the continent. It's part of a much larger strategy by the EU to extend its international partnerships in an effort to counterbalance the influence of China and Russia, as well as that of the United States. For more on this, we're joined by DW correspondent Hans Brandt from Berlin. Hans, what is the EU looking for in its initiatives in West Africa and in Africa as a whole?
Agreement that has just been recently signed with Ghana, a security agreement with the European Union, obviously concentrates on the West African region, where there are a number of countries that have recently been taken over by military governments, and there is some concern about Islamist terrorism in the region. The European Union's foreign policy head, Kaya Kallas, also mentioned Nigeria, which also has an insurgency by Islamist terrorist Islamist groups that it is dealing with, and Nigeria is also being supported. At the same time, if you look at the situation in East Africa, there is war in Sudan, there is instability still in southern Sudan and Somalia. There too, security cooperation is important. That's something that the European Union is also looking at. So across Africa, there's an attempt, I think, through these kinds of cooperation to find some sort of stability and to find reliable partners in Africa, countries that still continue to follow the democratic paths rather than authoritarian, autocratic regimes.
And Hans, what does the EU have to offer to strengthen these partnerships?
in very concrete terms, the EU partnership with Ghana, for instance, involves military equipment, non-lethal military equipment, surveillance equipment, that sort of thing, which is being supplied to Ghana and also to other countries in the region. And that, I think, is on offer elsewhere in Africa as well. But at the same time, there are also economic interests that play a role here. European Union is looking for sources for all sorts of raw materials, minerals, for instance, that otherwise it would have to get from countries such as China or Russia. But it is saying that its partnership will be fairer, will be more reliable than the partnerships offered by other countries, that the raw materials will to some extent be processed in Africa and not be exported as raw materials. So there is some support for the development of economies in African countries. And also, obviously, the European Union is offering its market. It's offering, to some extent, access to one of the largest markets in the world, and hoping for an exchange of goods rather than just a one-way street, as it were, towards the European Union.
Is Europe looking for stronger partners only in Africa or elsewhere as well?
No, absolutely. This is part of a very much of a global initiative. The European Union is looking for reliable partners across the world, also both in terms of defense, but also in terms of economic cooperation. Free trade agreements, for instance, have recently been agreed with countries in South America, but also with Australia. And there's one in the offing with India, and there's closer cooperation between the European Union and the African Union on economic matters. All of this is an attempt to build a network around the world of countries that continue to believe, that continue to support the rules-based order, that do not rely on pure strength, on economic pressure, such as would come from China or from Russia, and that can be relied on, in contrast to the United States, where Donald Trump's economic policy and international policy is very erratic and very unreliable. So an attempt to build a network around the world, including many African countries, that will continue to stabilize the global system, which is seen as becoming unstable at the moment.
Hans Brandt with our partners DW in Berlin. Thank you very much. Let's get some perspective on this and what this partnership could mean for Ghana's own security sovereignty. And joining me right now is an international relations expert, Dr. Ishmael Holovo. Dr. Holovo, welcome to the program. What do you make of this new partnership agreement between the EU and Ghana?
Thank you and good afternoon to your viewers. I think that in as much as it's a very important development, given the insecurity situation across the sub-region, given the issue of terrorism, the issue of piracy and other insecurities that we are struggling with, we must be very careful not to fall into the trap of some of these major powers. Remember that one of the reasons why the EU is trying to get a lot of partners across the world is the growing geopolitical tension. So partnerships like this, well, they are very important because of what they bring. They bring things like intelligence sharing. They bring some sort of resources that can help us to be more secure. But then again, within the geopolitical context, then you are looking at the EU bringing some of these partnerships as a tool to try and maintain influence and to try and maintain some level of leverage against other powers. So it is in that context that we must be careful how we proceed on this. Of course, this is a partnership of asymmetry. In other words, when you say partnership of asymmetry, the other power is more powerful than you. So it may work more to what they want than what we want. So I don't know what actually is involved in it, but then again, my caution is that in going for some of these deals, we should not only look at what will benefit in terms of monetary, in terms of materials, we should look at even the normative side of it. What message are we communicating in terms of our other African brothers who have had issues with the EU, the Sahel states, for instance, these Western nations were stationed there, but the terrorists, after all, were able to operate. It has to take them to break away from these Western nations to be able to reclaim some of their territories. So in as much as it's very useful in terms of intelligence sharing, because they have more sophisticated ability in terms of gathering intelligence than us, there's the need to be very careful not to allow them to push us around.
Dr. Hlovo, I want you to hold on for me. Let me bring in Reverend John Intim-Fodjoa. He's the ranking member on the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. What do you make of the EU's new defense agreement with the Republic of Ghana? Good? Kindly unmute your microphone so we can hear you. Hello, Reverend. Can you hear me? Right. We're trying to connect with Reverend John Intim-Fodjoa, who is the ranking member on Parliament's Defense and Interior Committee, to get his perspective as well on this topical issue. But Dr. Ishmael Hlovo is an international relations expert and is still with me. You're talking about an essential neocolonialism that could arise from this particular subject. But should we as a country be worried that that could be the pattern that this could be going? That is why the EU has rushed to sign this agreement with us.
As I indicated, it's about how you position yourself. This essentially, as I said earlier, it's a partnership of asymmetry. So the other who has much more resources may want to determine to you within the framework of the partnership. So we must define clearly what we want. If we feel at any point that this partnership is virtually going to narrow our policy space, realign our policy with the EU, we should be bold enough to say that, well, some aspects are not acceptable to us. So some of this, what you do is that you pick and choose, because at the current geopolitical level, there are so many players fighting for your attention. So you should be able to pick and choose what is in your best interest. But if we follow it the way we have always followed some of this partnership, the EU have clearly defined objective they want to achieve. That is, they want to diversify the sources of their where they source resources from, particularly those resources that they depend on their enemies. So we are seeing something like a friendshoring kind of situation where they know that they have economic interest in Ghana, and to do that, they need some level of security and defense partnership that allow their companies to operate here. That is fair and good, but it must be at the dictate and the interest of this country called Ghana. And as I indicated, as a country, we are in the middle of trying to provide stability within the West African Sahel. If you look at the role that the president has been playing in trying to mediate between ECOWAS and the Sahel states. And so if you enter some of these agreements at this time, it introduces that level of complexity where your own friends within the Sahel region will see you not as a reliable partner. So, but then you have to take steps to hedge against it. How do you assure somebody like Toure in Burkina Faso that in as much as you are in agreement with the EU, you are not going to undermine their interests? Those are issues that legitimately will rise up. And it's up to the government to adopt postures and policies that reassure the rest of West Africa that in as much as we have entered this partnership with the EU, it is in the best interest of Ghana, the best interest of the Sahel region, that we do so, and that at no point are we going to allow ourselves to be used as a tool within the sub-region. And then that is very key. As I indicated, yes, it's an agreement that we may need, but then there are issues that we have to portray to assure our neighbors that we are not just allowing ourselves to become a tool in the hand of imperialist forces to use against other countries in the region.
Don't go yet, Dr. Hlovo. Let me bring in Reverend John Intim-Fodjoa at this point. He is the ranking member on the Defense and Interior Committee. Welcome to the program. What do you think Ghana stands to benefit with this new defense pact we've signed with the European Union?
Thank you very much, Ken. I must state at the outset that it is very important that this government exercises a lot of caution, utmost caution, in the way that they enter into partnership agreements. Yes, the fight against terrorism and the security, providing security for one's country, of course, is not the it cannot be done by one country alone. Of course, you need partnership to be able to ensure your territorial borders are safeguarded and your foreign interests are also safeguarded. But of course, every decision that you take has repercussions and ramifications. And I agree with Dr. Glover when he says that when you enter into such a defense cooperation agreement with EU, for the first time, we've had sub-regional crisis or extremism, violent extremism and threat of terrorism for a very long time. How come all of a sudden EU is interested in a partnership with Ghana? Why didn't they come and express interest in partnership all this while? But they are coming because they have the AES, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali have severed relationship with them and have seized all such partnerships with them, even extending beyond defense partnerships. And so suddenly, for the interest of EU and France being a major player in EU to be served in West Africa, they are looking for somewhere to base. So Ghana must be very cautious in the way that you offer yourself for such partnerships. Now, a while ago, we were told by this same government that Captain Traore is their major partner in the sub-region, and they stated strategic reasons why Captain Traore is their major partner, for which he was invited to the inauguration of President Mahama. And so they further even appointed an envoy, special envoy for AES, all in an effort to court their cooperation so we'll be able to have joint intelligence sharing and such security cooperation with them. As we recently, we had the foreign minister go to Burkina to sign some agreement of a sort with Burkina. So if all of a sudden you turn around to go and sign a defense cooperation agreement with your friend's enemy, automatically you are putting that relationship you had with your neighbors in harm's way. We as minority have not yet been seized with the full details of this agreement, but we are aware that they entered into that agreement. We are yet to see what benefits Ghana will receive. We are yet to see the terms and conditions, but as per the dictates of Article 75 of our Constitution, for this agreement to come to effect, they need necessarily to lay it before Parliament for parliamentary ratification. And when such a time comes where we are seized with it, we will make our position known. But in the interim, we are cautioned because we are picking a lot of intel, we are picking a lot of sentiment in the sub-region about how their discomfort that they are expressing about this new defense cooperation agreement. I would always say that Ghana is not a poor country. We should be bold to be able to put our money where our mouth is and to invest heavily in the necessary security infrastructure, the surveillance tools, and all the security apparatus that will strengthen our resilience against threats of violent extremism and terrorism. If we want to now rely on foreign partners for provision of such basic tools in arming our security architecture, we would always be on the disadvantaged side. Recently, we had the foreign minister telling the whole world how Ghana allowed itself to become a base where United States of America used to launch attack on terrorists in Nigeria, a serious blunder. And you heard the EU representative, his interview, he says that they are doing this and their interest is to counterbalance the influence of Russia, Ukraine, and America. And so they have stated, so anyone who wants to lend yourself as a party to such an agreement, you are standing in the way of the interest of these major players whose influence EU stands to counterbalance. So have you now weighed the repercussions, the ramifications against the supposed benefits you will get from this cooperation agreement? In defense agreement, consistency is very important. Strategic goals, very important. National interest, very important. So you don't just wake up and enter into partnerships here, there, when the interests of those foreign partners are conflicting. The interest of AES conflicts that of France and EU. The interest of the major players that EU themselves cited in your interview have clearly indicated they conflict. They want to counterbalance. So you want to lend your country to be a base where the interests of China, the interests of Ukraine, the interests of Russia, the interests of America, these superpowers will be counterbalanced. So these are the questions that must occupy the thinking of the people who make such decisions for the country.
Right. Reverend Tim Fojo, do I get the impression that it did not come before Parliament?
It never came to Parliament, but as the practice is, such agreements are usually entered into by the government, and then after the government has entered into, before it comes to effect, they ferry it to Parliament for ratification. So we are waiting for it to come to Parliament for consideration, and when we are seized with the full details, we will make our position known. But as we speak, we were expecting that subsequent to the signing, which all of us were aware, we would have the details of it even late before Parliament, before we went on recess, but we are yet to have that done.
Does this jeopardize our non-alliance when it comes to international relations?
This is very, let me put it this way, this is actually not a major priority.
Right.
As a country, we don't even have a substantive defense minister, and yet you are hurrying to sign a defense cooperation agreement. Who does that? You don't have a substantive defense minister, and you think that your utmost priority is to look for foreign partners to sign defense cooperation agreements with them. You need to set your basic governance, security sector governance structures right and fully constituted before you want to seek partnership. And you must also weigh the implications of every partnership you are entering in, the pros and cons, before you go. You don't hurry it. So let's let them do their homework. First, they have to appoint their substantive defense minister. Let them get very sound defense advice and guide cabinet on such key decisions. Otherwise, they will be putting this country in harm's way. And some of these partnerships could be very dangerous. But like I said, we are yet to get the full details to state our position. But I agree with Dr. Lobo.
Right.
He's made very sound points.
Don't go yet. I'll come back to you a bit later. Dr. Hlovo is still on the line with me. I want to ask you the same question that I asked Reverend Tim Fojo. Does this put our non-alliance stance when it comes to international diplomacy in jeopardy, this particular agreement we signed with the European Union?
Of course, to an extent, once you have entered a defense agreement, you are virtually, as I said, once you start realigning your policy priorities to align more with your partner, you will then be forced to virtually pursue policies that may antagonize others. So it's up to how we exercise agency within the framework of the partnership. Exercising agency simply means that you are able to dictate what you want to do, even as you are a partner to another nation. The challenge is that when you have asymmetrical relations, where you have these powerful people against you, sometimes it's difficult to exercise your own independent choice of action. That is why I believe that as Africans, I don't think that this kind of defense agreement with major powers are in our interest. What we should be pursuing is a common African defense agreement, a common African defense architecture that allow African standby force to be more sophisticated to deal with terrorism wherever it surfaces here. That allow maybe ECOWAS forces to be able to deal with maritime insecurity. So I believe that if any African leader actually want Africa to rise and dominate the globe, we should be discussing seriously how do we on our own strengthen our common defense agreement between Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, putting forces, creating a command structure that allow ECOWAS forces to operate anywhere at the core of any of the member countries. If a member country, so for instance, you see, the Sahel states has faced terrorism for a very long time, and we have all sat down and allowed it. At a point, Burkina Faso has more than 70% of their territory under terrorist control. What is ECOWAS' role? We should be able to military capability and be able to defend. The reasons why some of these approaches are difficult to pursue. So if we are going to pursue a common African solution to some of the security issues that we face, I'm not sure that these agreements are actually of our interest. We should be able, if the EU is coming to sign an agreement, we should sign it for ECOWAS so that we operate at the same level. These pick and choose African countries always pit us against one another. And then we don't end up singing from the same hymn book and they're able to quickly overrun us. So for personally, where I stand is that Africa should be pursuing a common defense and security architecture. The Africa must be pursuing, West Africa must be pursuing West African standby force strong enough with adequate resource, with command structures that allow them to operate in any part of West Africa without hindrance. That is what the whole issue should be about. As for this pick and choose agreement with powerful nations, it will always result in the same structural dependency that have kept us where we are.
Dr. Ishmael Hulova is an international relations expert. Thank you very much for your expert analysis. I still have Reverend Intim Fojo on the line with me. Reverend Intim Fojo, on Monday, President John Mahama told CSOs that the LGBTQ activities are not the main priority of Ghanaians at the moment. You've raised some objections to that. Why?
It is a betrayal of trust. It is a hypocritical U-turn on the part of the president and his party for promising, making major promises to the Ghanaian people when they were in opposition, calling our party and the then president all kinds of names, insisting that they are the ones who come to power and initiate or introduce a government-sponsored bill to deal with LGBT, only for them to win power, they turn around and state that rather disappointingly, in a very disappointing manner, the priorities of this country have suddenly changed from the 93% of our population by CDD Afrobarometer survey who think and still think that LGBT values are very repugnant to our societal, our cultural, our religious values, and for which Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill ought to be upheld. President says until our basic needs are met, until all jobs are provided for our youth, until basic food, health, and education needs are dealt with. This is a low priority for him. It's a big disappointment. We are urging President that, Mr. President, this is not what you claim to be a member of Assemblies of God and promise the clergy. When they laid hands on you at the icon in East Legon and blew tongues on you and prayed and prophesied upon you, when you promise them you're going to sign the bill, you're going to introduce your bill, you're going to make sure that LGBT legislation that would deal with LGBT are introduced and they applauded you, this is not what you signed up for. Today, the needs of this country, paramount among them, is the need to safeguard our values. Under the President Mahama, we've seen Ghanaian students being taught government-approved and distributed teacher manuals stating that gender is no longer about what you are assigned at birth, but it's about your internal feelings, and you can be a male or female or both, a blend of both. That is what President Mahama is teaching our kids. This is alarming. And so just because you have been denied an honorary doctorate degree in Lincoln University should not cause you to change your priorities, because sovereignty lies in the people. The people of Ghana who voted for you have not changed their priorities. You can't change your priorities. The priorities of the overwhelming majority of Ghanaians still remains that LGBT is an abomination. Therefore, stay true to your promise. You cannot weaponize LGBT to win power just to abandon it and take a U-turn.
You are one
Set
of
your priorities right.
Right. You are one of the proponents of the anti-LGBTQ bill to Parliament. What's the status of that bill as we speak?
The the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill, which we reintroduced in the same shape and form that was passed in the 8th Parliament, was blocked for about 7 months. It was blocked by the Speaker and Majority Leader, and was only recently that they allowed it to be taken. Even when it was listed, there was not a single meeting. And when it was listed and referred to the Committee on Constitutional Legal, there was not a single meeting that was called to consider the bill for even second reading. So date, we don't even know when. It is, and when I started saying and questioning the priority of the president and the priority of the leadership, the speaker and the majority leader, who is the leader of government business, many Ghanaians doubted, but today have been exonerated by the president. He says that it is low on his priority. It is not on his priority list. As a matter of fact, it is not on his table to ferry to Parliament. If it were on a priority, he would have ordered for it to be fast-tracked. In fact, we could use 3 days to deal with this bill, and then he could assent to it. He even promised that he himself will introduce government-sponsored bill. He has now turned his back on that promise and is saying that it is no longer a priority. And so that is the kind of president Ghanaians voted for. You see, with a lot of politics has been done on this matter, and it is quite disappointing that as political class are taking U-turns and demonstrating unprincipled views on it, changing their principles and their stance on this matter depending on where they find themselves. The clergy, the CSOs, the traditional rulers, and the imams, the Muslim clerics, all the stakeholders who sparked fire and brimstone in this country are the handling of LGBT matters when NPP was in power. We expect them, this is the time we expect them to even be up in arms. Because never once have we heard a president stating that LGBT is low on his priority list. If President Akufo-Addo has said this, all hell would have broken loose. So we are urging our clergymen, they are men and women of integrity. We, apart from Reverend Dr. Puni Frimpong, haven't had any other communicable body or clergy weighing into this. Rather, what we saw was Catholic Bishop Conference and the leadership of Assemblies of God writing a letter of praise to the president.
Do I still have Reverend Ntimforjo with me? Unfortunately, we appear to have lost him there, but thank you very much for those insights. He is the ranking member on the Defense and Interior Committee. I understand we have him back on the line. You froze a bit. Please continue with your point.
Yes, so Ken, is it not surprising that at the time when, for the first time, a sitting president is telling CSOs and the whole of Ghana that, and the whole world that because he was denied Lincoln University honorary doctorate, LGBT matter is no longer a priority on his list.
But those are not the reasons that he gave, Reverend Ntimforjo. He never gave that reason.
No, listen to the full tape. And if I'm to paraphrase, he said that concerning LGBT bill, even in advanced liberal economies, it still remains an emotive and sensitive matter. And here in Ghana, we have basic needs of food, of jobs, of health and education to deal with. And the matter as is being introduced in Parliament, even when it is passed, what will guide the decision among them will be the recent decision at Lincoln University, which will cause them to even consult more development partners to gauge their sentiments, and also our constitution, social cohesion, and fundamental human rights. Ken, this is a bill that Supreme Court has provided their judgment, not even ruling, judgment, that it does not affront any part of the Constitution. It does not affront any human rights treaty. So which human rights violations is the president talking about? And which constitution is he going to be guided by? Is it the same constitution that guided the Supreme Court? They interpreted and held that the bill is sacrosanct. So the only new introduction here is the Lincoln University. He shouldn't even have mentioned it in any way. It's most shameful. It is disappointing. It is a betrayal. This is not politics. Regardless the political party you belong to, it is our values. It is not about religion. It is about our values. Your child is in school and being taught this abominable concept. So it doesn't matter your political affiliation. Let us be united around this fight and win and rid this country of the demonic LGBT tendencies, which is now being given a presidential approval. The president has clearly given what has been his hidden stance all this while. He's given it out. But now he's won power. He's not going to run again. But his party is going to run again. And so the same people that you deceived in this country and weaponized LGBT, and they voted for you, and now you are turning around to say it is you've jettisoned it. No longer your priority. We'll show you where their priority lies in 2028. Thank you very much.
Reverend John Ntimforjo, thank you very much. He's the MP for Asin South and also the ranking member on Parliament's Defense and Interior Committee. Well, let's still stay in Parliament because the Public Accounts Committee members have expressed shock over District Assembly's Common Funds revelations that 20 million cedis was paid on the 31st of December 2024 as part of mobilization fees for a non-existent parliamentary service hospital. This came to light this afternoon at the PAC meeting. Here's what transpired a while ago.
5 million and 20 million was paid. Who signed that contract?
Just a second. Mr. Chairman, the signatory to the contract on behalf of the government was Dr. Gov't. And it was witnessed by the signatory of Dr. Gov't.
Who witnessed it?
The chief director, Al-Haji Hafiz Adam.
So my question is, where is this parliamentary service hospital? Have they started the building? We already paid 15% mobilization.
Mr. Chairman, it is my understanding from the letter received from Sienna Services that the money they received went into project design and technical planning, site assessment, consultancy services, arrangement of bonds and guarantees and insurance. However, they also did indicate that they were asked to change the project site from the parliamentary area to the national security compound. And that has, so the new site has not been given to them yet, and therefore work has stalled.
How about the review team obtained the review third-party obligations of DACF amounting to 4.1 billion? Was that the amount? Oh, this one is different. This one is different. This is DACF is okay, that's it.
Yeah, so I just want to know what was the total amount?
In dollars was 46,950,279, and at 15 CD38 that's what I said, exchange rate, that came to 722,095,291.
So the amount that was paid was at what percentage? 5% or 15%?
So 15% was supposed to have been paid as mobilization, amounting to 108,314,294 seats. So out of this 108 million sum, 20 million was paid, leaving a mobilization balance outstanding of 88,314,294 seats.
What are you going to do? The bank has the money, and you have to provide the site. You cannot blame me.
No, Common Fund is not to provide the site. Common Fund's role in this contract was merely as a financier. The contract was between the Ministry of Health and the financier. So it is actually the Ministry of Health.
That has to be answering to this.
Correct. But our role was just to pay the mobilization, and we did so.
But there should be some coordination and agree and knowing that the time you are paying is right. If yours is to pay, you can't just be not finding out about it.
No, I do believe that at the time Common Fund made the payment, site had been agreed. And that was the basis on which the mobilization became due. It was paid on the 31st of December 2024.
31st of December 2024.
Yes.
Was that part of your formula? That was approved by Parliament.
In 2024, I believe that was not part of the formula.
So it was not part of the formula?
No, it was not.
On what basis was DACF? Who were those people who were there at the time that happened?
Okay, so the administrator on that day was my predecessor, the Honorable Archbishop, and the finance officer was.
And what about the accountant?
The finance officer, Mr. Gov't.
Is he here?
No, he's not here.
So
we did write both of them, but unfortunately, they are all not available. They are all not available. So I think.
So, Chairman, did you say 31st December 2024?
Yes.
But the elections have then been done. Yes, it have just been done. And so has changed. So how come? But at least the election.
It's not about government.
It is.
No, government is a continuum. So if the person in power at the moment is not
You're still watching The Pulse. State insurer PIC or SIC Insurance PLC has denied claims that state-owned enterprises have been directed to prioritize the use of state insurance companies, specifically SIC Insurance and SIC Life Company. The response follows a petition submitted to President John Mahama by policy think tank Imani Africa, which alleges a growing and systemic pattern of political interference in Ghana's insurance sector. Founding president of the organization, Franklin Kujo, warns that insurance contract decisions within some state institutions are increasingly being influenced by political directives rather than merit. He is urging the president to intervene to ensure fair competition among insurance companies.
If you recall, not long ago, the behavior we are reporting to you or reported to the president occurred in the pensions industry. But it occurs in almost all industries that appear to be lucrative and for which the other politician is trying to railroad everybody else so that he gets out the business to his private company, or the other way around, as we're experiencing now, where we think that the state entity is encouraging non-competitive, non-merit-based, and unfair practices in the insurance industry. To the extent that insurance companies that are legit, that have invested their time, professionalism, and grit in the business, and incorporated all these international companies so that they could reinsure in this country some of the most, should I call it, very heavily invested state-owned enterprises like Ghana Gov't, the VRA, all those big state startups that you need a lot of money to be able to underwrite their insurance. Now the challenge is that all these companies that have been involved in this insurance for a while cannot just be railroaded by the within the shakes of a limestone simply because an election occurred. And that's what we are trying to fight. I mean, if it was wrong yesterday, it should not be right today. You recall that our former finance minister is accused of virtually controlling the entire insurance business, right? Through his organization, he's forgotten the name of the company. We can't allow these kinds of things to continue. And we think that if the state wants to take part and the state wants its entities to be ensured by the state entity like SIC, then SIC has got to compete on fair grounds. Question is, do you want to put all your eggs in one basket? All these companies that the SIC is supposed to basically underwrite the insurance, what happens is they make cash calls on the SIC as we speak. I don't want to get into whether the SIC is a strong institution in terms of finances or not. I mean, the judgment is all out there for us to see. I know the SIC life insurance may be doing quite well, but it is important not to allow, even if the state wants to have all the state entities ensured by the SIC, it should be done in a competitive and fair manner.
That's the president of Imani Africa, Franklin Kujo. But speaking to JoyNews, the managing director of SIC Insurance, James Boateng, rejected the allegations, insisting the company competes for business like any other insurer and does not benefit from any political interference.
I correct the erroneous impression that is being made out there. I am unaware of, nor is SIC a beneficiary of any so-called political interference in the insurance space. Every single day when we come here at SIC, all of us go out to prospect for business, just like any other insurance company does. I think that it is most unfair to the reputation of SIC and all of us collectively for the efforts that we are making. I mean, while this allegation has been made, I think that some specific examples ought to be demanded from the very persons who are making this claim. For example, which businesses have been directed here? You need to be asking yourself those questions. Now, while this impression has been created, let me give you a very typical example. Prior to my coming to SIC, Bank of Ghana, the central bank, that insurance and account was one account that SIC held exclusively, all 100%. Today, in this same administration of President John Dramani Mahama, SIC's share of Bank of Ghana's insurance is 12%. Is that what the political interference is? I'll cite another example. I went out there with my colleagues here at SIC. We went chasing a certain business transaction at Power Authority. We were written to, we were officially notified through their brokers that SIC was going to get 50% of that business. Subsequent to that, without any communication superseding that earlier one, when the distribution was done, SIC's share was 10%. It was, again, then the brokers now revised that share to 15%. Is it not the same administration of President John Dramani Mahama we are talking about? If I have political leverage and that is what I'm exploiting, why should SIC's business in Bank of Ghana move from 100% share interest to only 12%? Why should I get 10%? Why should SIC get 10% of Power Authority's business? These allegations are unfounded, they are baseless.
That's the managing director of SIC Insurance, James Boateng. However, Imani has pushed back, releasing documents it says supports its claim. The think tank cites a December 2025 communication from the State Interest and Governance Authority, which says signaled state institutions to prioritize insurance placements with SIC Insurance and SIC Life. It also points to a follow-up letter from SIC Life to Gov't Distilleries referencing guidance from the Ministry of Finance and SIGA requesting favorable conditions in contract renewals. Imani argues that developments indicate a shift from open competition to policy-driven coordination within the insurance market. So that's it that you see on your screen right now, the documents Imani has released to back their claim. Well, thankfully, I've been joined on the telephone lines by K. Kujo. He's an associate of Imani Africa. Welcome to the program. Imani says he believes that a shift toward policy-driven insurance placements within the SOEs amounts to political or administrative interference in the market. Tell us why.
Yes, good afternoon to your listeners and to yourselves as well. But first, I want to start with a fair point, that it is not wrong to support state-owned companies. In fact, it can be good. When government businesses grow, they create opportunities for the economy. So it's very important to clarify that point. But the concern here is that support must be done fairly and transparently, not through quiet pressure and hidden instructions, like we've seen in the document you showed on your screen. What is happening now is that state institutions are being guided to use SIP, which is good, but it should be transparent. And the guidance is coming from SIGA, State Interest and Governance Authority. But the simple issue here is if one company is being favored, others don't get a chance to fair competition. Competition reduces, price and quality may suffer. And that is why Imani sees it as a sensitive issue to deal with.
Right.
To add to that, it's important to clarify that SIC is not fully government-owned. It is partly private. So when some of these things happen and government directs businesses there, it is also benefiting private shareholders.
Right. So SIC Insurance insists it competes for contracts like any other insurer. So from Imani's perspective, what exactly shows that political interference rather than normal business competition could be at play here?
You've seen the letter to Gov't. I mean, it's always very important when the evidence speaks for itself.
Right.
You've seen the quiet pressure, and I think that is what raises the concern. There should be fair competition. Because if you look at the sector, Glyco, for instance, has raised similar concerns. I quite remember in 2014, Glyco petitioned the president at the time. It was President John Mahama, his first administration. And Glyco petitioned the president over quite a similar issue. And then His Excellency intervened with clarity, reversing the directive. So all Imani is saying that something similar is going on. It's important. As much as we want to support state institutions to succeed, we also need to support private competitors, other competitors to also compete favorably without quiet pressure.
Right.
Things like that.
And how widespread do you believe this alleged directive is across state-owned enterprises, and which institutions have you identified as being affected apart from SIC?
If you look at the data, you realize that there are quite a number of insurance companies that occupy a large share of the market. And then there are quite a few of them as well that are struggling. I mean, if you look at enterprise insurance and Star, so on and so forth, you'd realize that they are competing favorably. But even them, they are having these issues. And just a few weeks ago, I'm aware that insurance companies had a conference, a sort of convention, and these issues came up, So I don't really get the drift of the CEO. I don't really understand what he's driving at. He's been a little bit too defensive, but it would be prudent that he would have engaged Imani before coming out to make some of these allegations, putting up some of these defenses, because we're not speaking out of parties, we're speaking based on evidence. Definitely.
Right. And what impact could such a directive have on competition and pricing within Ghana's insurance industry?
Technically, when that happens, it affects their performance, and when it affects their performance, of course, they can sustain their overhead, so on and so forth. And in extension, even globally, it does not look good for us for reinsurance. Because when there's a lot that goes on in the background before some of these arrangements are made. So if arrangements have been made prior and suddenly there's a change, there should be a more sustainable way to manage these changes rather than force it into existence. Because it does not just affect our insurance sector locally, it affects it also globally. And this is a government that came into power on the campaign of a reset. We understand that the reset is very important to keep our local institutions in check and deliver the best to the citizenry. But it's also important that these things are done properly and in accordance with law. There are procurement laws. Tendering should be open. It should be done properly. It shouldn't be done with a quiet coercion and some sort of pressure. That is what it is.
Right. Kay Kujo is an associate with Imani Africa. Thank you very much. For more than 30 years, a traditional chief priest, Togbe Akpaso, has performed rituals at a shrine in Labadi, believing the land and the gods he serves will be protected. Today, the sea is moving ever closer, threatening to wash away the shrine he has guarded for decades. His faith remains strong, but he's now appealing to the government for help as the sea continues to wreak havoc. Emmanuel Jivenu has more in JoyNews' later series, When the Sea Comes Home, chronicling the impact of sea erosion in Accra.
Every morning, traditional priest Togbe Akpaso pours libation here, calling on his gods to protect the land he has guarded for more than 30 years. But the land he is praying for is slowly disappearing. The sea that once stayed far from his shrine now moves closer with every strong wave, breaking walls, exposing rocks, and threatening to wash away the very place he believes is sacred.
The first time the sea was far from us, it's not this near like the way it is now. So now we are seeing that the sea is coming. More than a year now.
The changes are no longer small. Parts of the land have already been taken. Walls have collapsed. The ground that once felt solid now breaks apart after every high tide.
It's coming. We all are seeing that the sea is coming. Sometimes you go far across, sometimes it will come. So we are seeing at the side like that.
For Togbe Akpaso, the sea is something he speaks to. He believes it listens, and he believes it can be persuaded to stay away. That is why he continues the rituals, even as part of the shrine begins to collapse.
As we, the traditional people or the spiritual people, we need a ceremony to perform for the sea. Sometimes that sea can even go far, will not come to. And then sometimes you come to. If you pass this corner right now, nearly remove everything. The work of the government now, they only have to help us with those stones, big stone help us for the sea to go back.
Experts say the fears in communities like Labadi are real. Studies show that a large part of Ghana's coastline is already eroding, meaning the sea continues to move inland every year.
We may lose our coastline into the dry land about 30 kilometers by 2050 or 2050, by the mid-century. That statistics is available. That is why I'm saying that if we can begin to do something now, then of course we can stand the test of time.
For Togbe, the greatest fear is not losing the land. It is the thought that one day the sea could wash away the shrine and the gods he believes have protected this place for years.
If something like that will happen, I will be the first person who will remove. As soon as I started removing, and then other people will know that there is no chance.
The sea is still moving closer. The walls are still collapsing. And the people who live here say they cannot fight it alone anymore. The question now is how long this land and the shrine that stands on it can survive if nothing is done. Emmanuel Jivenu, JoyNews, Labadi.
Young professionals are being challenged to prioritize continuous learning and sharpen their skills to stay competitive and grow. The call came at the launch of the Value for the Weaker Arm, where the author also unveiled plans to establish the Weaker Arm Foundation to support underprivileged students to access university education. Nancy Kumsim reports.
The book, The Value of the Weaker Arm, authored by Wisdom Kwame Nuwakpo, draws on his life experiences to show how personal limitations can be turned into strengths for leadership and growth.
It takes the obscure to sustain the obvious. So you see people in the limelight. They are the people everyone would see. But the truth of the matter is that they are indeed the people who do the heavy lifting. So the weaker arm is always doing the heavy lifting, but it's somebody up there who is the obvious. And so it's important that we recognize the weaker arm within our homes, our organizations, our societies.
Mr. Wisdom Kwame Nuwakpo urged young professionals to embrace continuous learning, build competence, and strive consistently for career growth.
Keep on learning. Keep on adding things to your tools box. So you may see a position which is up high there and you want to go for it, but your qualification is not there. That is a skills gap. That is your weaker arm you need to develop. All right, so add tools to your tools box. Learn something new. Pick up books, read. Ask questions. How is this done? Take up positions. Move laterally. And learn new jobs. As you learn new jobs, you put more tools into your tools box. And then when the time comes for you to bring out what is in your tools box, nobody can stop you. Nobody can stop you. I started as a payroll clerk. I kept learning, adding things to my tools box. And today I'm the chief internal auditor of a Pan-African bank.
Mr. Nuwakpo also announced plans to establish the Weaker Arm Foundation to support underprivileged students in accessing university education. For JoyNews, Nancy Kumsim's report read to you.
That's it for the pulse this evening. For more news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com. There you have it. Our top story this hour says 1 dead, others injured over land demolition dispute at Akwatia Line in Kumasi. The news team returns at 7 p.m. with News Prime. Thank you very much for being a part of the show today. My name is Kenneth. Jesse, have a good evening.